Welcome to All Leaders Must Serve podcast. And I am Jane Williams, founder and executive director. The purpose and theme of this is job readiness mentoring. And today our episode is job readiness, the essentials, and we are going to be doing getting the job. Just a teaser, I left home at 18 and moved to from Colorado to California by myself. I graduated illiterate, but I taught myself to read after meeting my first mentor, and I've enjoyed a full and diverse career, and you can do it too, and I'll tell you how. So today I'd like to introduce our special guest, Matthew Borelli. He was an intern with All Leaders Must Serve. He actually is responsible for the series, the Trust series, which has been very successful. He did it with me for the first year. We had a blast. So he is now going to Chico State, and we wanted to invite him back and go over the job readiness series with you before we get started. Matthew, glad to have you here.
It's great to be here.
Yeah. So we've done a lot of work together, and the thing about you that I love is I think you express what young people are thinking better than anybody I've ever heard. And the whole podcast is about hearing young people, adults hearing young people, and understanding the struggles and the challenges that you have in trying to get a job, not just get a job, but keep a job and excel in that job.
Right.
And when you came to us, one of the things that you struggled with a few things, anxiety and depression, to name a few. Just real briefly, why don't you share with us just some of the things that you got out of ALMS before, or that inspired you to move on to Chico State?
Well, I think the biggest thing that I gained was a real sense of confidence, because going in, obviously, I think that anxiety and depression were very, very strong. And having gone into ALMS, I didn't really know what I was doing. At first, I was just scared. I was nervous. I felt like I was underperforming, all of that. But through learning the lessons here and actually being able to teach, be a real part of this, I think I left with a sense of confidence that I could take anywhere with all the skills that I gained here.
Wow, that's awesome. And we hear this a lot, but with you in particular, we spent a lot of time with you because you were an intern. You were a part-time paid employee with ALMS, and you were 19 when you started, I think.
Yes.
And you were a nervous wreck.
Yeah, that's true.
But fortunately, and so I would have to calm you down. They called me the Matthew Whisperer. We'd have to calm you down and let you know it's going to be okay. And I think you educated me so much to understanding a little bit more about why our young people are struggling with anxiety so much, especially after the pandemic. Being so isolated from others. Prior to that, maybe bullied. But now you're looking at becoming an adult and really wanting to understand what is necessary. What do you need to do to make sure that you don't underperform, as you put it, that you're successful. And that's our goal here at ALMS. And that's why mentors are so important. And I became your mentor and friend. Yes. And that's what a mentor is also, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
To hear your heart, to hear your struggles, to hear the things that you were fearful of, and then try to answer those questions up front so that you could go forward and be successful. And I threw you into some pretty adult situations right off the bat.
Right off the bat. That was...
It's because I believed in you.
Yes.
And did that encourage or inspire you at all?
I think it did. It was, at first I was kind of scared. I can't deny it. I was scared because I believe it was a huge meeting. I can't remember exactly.
Both of them were big.
Both of them were big, yes.
Both of them were with the community of Woodland, and the second one had, you had your city council members, you had your board members, you had the Daily Democrat newspaper, you had everybody there on the second one, and even your father's boss was there.
Yep.
So, and you were asked to speak on my behalf because I was sick.
Mhm.
And so these were like 2 days in a row. And I'm like, Matthew, go in and tell about ALMS. But you had been attending ALMS as a student for our Toastmasters program that we were putting on. So I knew you had the ability to communicate, but now you were going to have to share a lot more about ALMS. And so you learned a lot more after you spoke than before, but you did a good job, and I knew you would.
Oh, thank you.
And isn't that part of it, is somebody really believing in you?
Yeah, I think that's the big difference maker right there.
Right. And you had to perform. You had to do it.
I had
And
to
you
get out
got,
there.
surprisingly to you, you got so many accolades. So many people were impressed with you. And they were impressed because you were a young person who opened your mouth and expressed yourself. And they weren't used to that happening, especially in a public setting, right?
Right.
So, but you had a lot to say, and you struggled to get it out, but you got it out, and they just applauded you, right?
Yes, they did.
You were surprised.
I was surprised. I was very surprised. I was just kind of thinking, I'm in this room right now with adults twice or higher than my age, and I'm speaking professionally with them. And that was a shock because I was usually used to being spoken down to,
Right.
especially by people older than I.
Right.
It was more like I would be looking up at you and just listening. Just, yep, you got it, boss. But
Right. Do you think a lot of young people feel that way when they get their first job?
I do think so. I think rather than being on a shoulder to shoulder human level where it feels like a team, it feels more like a pyramid scheme where I'm looking up and just climb to get into that position or just leaving. Or at least that's from what I've heard from lots of other young people. But before I went to ALMS, it definitely felt like that too. I think with the first job I had, which was actually lifeguarding, I was the youngest person there. And rather than being showed a lot of tips and tricks that would help me become a lot better in the field, it was more like I was always having to ask questions and not really getting time to spend with my coworkers. So, and especially my manager, who very much talks down to me.
Mm.
And so it just made me feel more isolated in the workplace. And when you feel that sense of isolation in a place where you should be social, working as a team to achieve all these goals, it's a make or break deal. It's what made working at a pizza place actually bearable, believe it or not, right?
Yeah.
I had better coworkers at the time and even better managers who were more understanding, more open, and told you what you needed to hear. I think that was one of the most important things because with that feedback that I gained during work, it was not the biggest stepping stone, but a stepping stone that would lead to the success that got me into my next job and finally here. Right.
Now, the next job after the pizza place was a little challenging as well.
Yes.
And you, again, were put in a place where you were isolated. Tell us a little bit about that, too.
Right. So it was pretty much another situation of looking up to people because I was the newest person there. Maybe not the youngest, but I was the newest. And so I remember the first couple of days, I was more so cleaning around and waiting for training to happen because I was in a leadership position this time. I would be a student ambassador. I would be representing the school during its events. Excuse me. And so this was pretty important, I recognized, right? And I had no idea what I was really doing. I somehow met the qualifications, got the job, put on this show of confidence, but I didn't know what I was doing. And so I would ask my coworkers, I would ask my friends, uh, or not friends, I would ask my boss and coworkers, what can I do to be helpful? And I would do this multiple times a week. So I would just keep looking, because when I was working at the pizza place, that was something that they encouraged us to do. Just keep looking for work, something. Even if you're just cleaning the floor, it's something. You just got to keep going at it.
Right.
But this was more chilled out, I should say. There was a lot less to do unless there was events happening or coming up. And when those came around, it was actually my favorite times working there, because I would get to be so active, not just physically, but I would be putting all kinds of work into talking with people, being social, being kind, excited, everything. Those were my favorite parts of the last job, but all the in-betweens were difficult because there wouldn't be much for me to do.
Right. And so you were lacking training to know what to do, especially in those downtimes, and communication with your employer. So when those things are missing and a young person feels at odd, right? They don't know what to do next. That's when it gets real tricky for them. And that's where their insecurities start really coming out. Like, what's wrong with me? Why aren't I working? What should I do next? And they're much more likely to get in trouble because they're going to choose something that isn't what they should do next.
Yeah.
So yeah, it is kind of like a pyramid scheme where you're trying to figure it out, and if you get it wrong, you're going to get jumped on, right?
Yeah, it's odd because I think I remember, especially in that last job we were just talking about, I remember doing a lot of dirty work that others weren't really willing to do because it was something, right? So I would clean behind windowsills with melted lollipops. I went into a fridge that hadn't been cleaned since the beginning of the pandemic, and
oh my gosh,
it was in a 113 degree weather, right? But it was something. It was all something to do. And I was thanked for it. You know, they were thankful that I was willing to do that and to organize, do all of this physical labor. But when it came to anything else, it was so nothing,
right,
that sometimes I would get bored, understimulated, and I would get distracted. I would go on my phone.
And this is also where the anxiety and depression can start coming in when you feel devalued.
Yes, I think that was really where it started to set in, when there was that feeling of being devalued. Like, what am I doing here?
Right.
What do I do here? If there's nothing I can do to bring anything to the table, why am I sitting here? What am I getting paid for? And I think that's something a job can do, or a job opportunity. It can give you a sense of purpose beyond just money. Even as much as entry level feels like, at least I'm doing something.
Right.
And it doesn't make it feel like a waste of time. The depression just came, the depression and anxiety, I should say, came from that. But I think the anxiety also came from getting caught slacking off, which obviously, yeah, you would feel anxious if you were slacking off. But it was more like, I don't know what I'm doing here. Right. I've asked to see what I can do.
So there's a lot of fear of knowing, not making the wrong step or the wrong move. So it's very paralyzing.
It is, yes.
We're going to be sharing with our group just what those tips are that you would have hoped you had gotten before you started those jobs. And what we do is soft skills, and soft skills are the things that every employer wants you to do. And these soft skills will get you in the door, but when they start teaching you what we call hard skills, which are specific to your job, it will add value to whatever you're being asked to do. And so we know that you will excel with that. And later we're going to do something called the Trust Series, which talks about our character development and how important it is to trust others, but also to know who to trust and who not to trust, which I know is a big thing with our young people. So stay tuned, keep watching for our podcast. We have more to come. Thank you.